Dreams don't really matter because if they did, we would be making a lot of effort to achieve them. Instead, what we do is make the dreams of our loved ones come true, and especially the ones of the next generation, being our kids. So, why is it okay to have dreams when we are young, growing up, and then when we enter adult life and start to work, it all seems to fall apart? Well, that's the question I want to discuss today. And I also want to get in three reasons why dreams do matter. So, let me start by saying that I talked to a couple of people, and when I said, "What's keeping you from following your dreams?" the answer was, "Well, I want to spend time with my kids. I need to work out. I simply don't have the time." Okay. And basically, that was the answer. I heard from more people, but I also heard the other thing, which was, uh, it's no use. I mean, who am I? And I'm way too old. And I think that answer was a bit more to the truth. Um, if you look at those answers, maybe we can conclude something else as well, which is, but what if we do want to do it, but we don't dare to do it? And then we get to, we pretend that we don't care, we come up with all these excuses, but in reality, we just don't dare do it. So, what's the difference between when we are young and when we're older? Well, of course, when we are young, we have the support of our kids, that's of our parents. When we are the kids, now for those who have the kids, they support the kids. And we have to provide income, so we have to do the responsible thing. But does this mean that we should stop caring about our dreams? Well, I understand why at some point we forget about our dreams, especially when we go from being a student to adult life, as in we get a job, we get a house, maybe we meet our partner, we have kids, and of course, money needs to come from somewhere in order to be able to do all it, to sustain it all. With work at a job and also taking care of the house come, of course, not only responsibilities, but it takes up a lot of time. And quite often we are drained afterwards. We don't have any energy left. So, what do we do if we don't have any energy left? We don't start working on our dreams anymore. And of course, the other thing, it's nice to have dreams, but dreams usually cost money. And we need the money to to get grocery shopping, to pay the mortgage or the rent, to have our kids go to school or go to college, all that stuff. So with becoming more mature and becoming more responsible, it seems that there's no room left for our kids. But now let's talk on just a little bit. So the people I've been talking to, they tell me, well, yeah, our kids do have equipment like a keyboard, a guitar, whatever it is they're using. And quite often they align with what the parents wanted to do at some point, which of course begs the question, whose dream is it the kids have? So they have been influenced by someone, probably. And of course, it can all just be in the genes, and everyone wants to do the same thing. Could be true as well. But question, If everything is there, instruments are there, don't you really have 10 minutes time to go do it? Really? So you do have time to go to the gym for an hour. You have time to spend with your kids, but you really don't have those 10 minutes to play the keyboard, play the guitar, sing a little bit during the day, or whatever it is. One of the things we could do, of course, is we could spend time with our kids doing that same thing that they do, that we love to do. And yes, maybe we don't have their standards. And here comes fear again, knocking on the door. Hello, Anna. And so if fear comes knocking on the door, then and it's kind of funny because basically what we are saying is that we are ashamed to do the same thing our kids do in front of our kids. And is that correct? I mean, we are used to telling kids it's good what you do and it's okay, and yeah, sure, you can always improve it, but we tell them it's okay what you do. But then the question comes, if we tell them it's okay, why don't we follow in our own footsteps? Why don't we follow our own advice? So, why are we the ones who cannot be faltering when it comes to our kids or other people? I mean, we have to start somewhere and we have to learn something. And that's the whole thing. I think a lot of people, especially when growing up, becoming more aware of the world and how the world might react, that a lot of people are afraid of how other people will react because it might be considered ridiculous that once you start working, especially when you're over 40 or 50, that you still would like to pursue a dream. I mean, act normal, then you're already acting crazy enough. Let's say we would act upon those dreams. What would it give us? First of all, it would give us self esteem and pride. That's a very big one. So maybe when we start, we are like, oh my God, this is so difficult and I can't get a hang of it. And of course, here's the thing, as adults, we are doing things we are good at. We don't have to learn new things because we have already learned those new things. But what if we would learn it? And yes, maybe we don't have the same skills we had when we were 20 years younger. I mean, the brain, when we look at neuroplasticity, the brain is much more flexible when we're young. I mean, look at little babies, they only make all those connections in the brain to learn things. That's how they learn to walk and to talk and all the other things. But when we get older, and when we are more used to doing the same things day in, day out, it's more based on experience. And that might be why we are reluctant to learn new things, because it's new. And new means making an effort, and means new means we are going to make faults. And we don't like making errors. We don't like making mistakes because how do we look at ourselves? And especially when we are doing it in front of others, what are they going to say? But let's turn it around. If we were to do it, that would mean that we are actually creating new neural paths in our brain. And why do we need that? Because when we get older, we want those neural paths in there. We want to be flexible. We want to be able to catch nets. Um, sorry, they have a habit. They like me a lot. Okay, so We do need those neural paths because we need to be flexible. We need to be able to learn new skills during our lives, especially in this age. I mean, the IT age. There are so many things that we can actually do, and what we can take advantage of, but we have to do it. And if we don't do it, nothing will happen. So if we want to become old in a very healthy way, and I mean mentally healthy, as in brain healthy, and we want to stop the deterioration of our brains, then one of the things we need to do is make sure that the neural pathways are there. That's why, of course, we have the games like Sudoku, all those brain games, basically to get us going. And if we were to do things like play a musical instrument, because that's a lot of time what I hear people say, well, then we would use our right hand and we would use our left hand. Yeah, I know it's mirrored for you. Um, but that would mean that we have to use both halves of our brain. And, you know, creating those pathways and having them fire to one another, especially using both hands at the same time, it's only in our advantage. So keeping our brain young would be a really good reason to go do it. So with um, applying new skills, we have been talking about how it feels for ourselves, pride, because we take the effort. And we can take that a little step further, one step further, as in we show our kids how it's done. This is also about being a role model. Again, you can tell them it's okay to do it, but if you don't do it, what do you actually tell them? Well, the other one, of course, neuroplasticity. Great word, I love it. But how about community? So I already suggested that chances are that if you do things that you want to do them, perhaps with your kids, you want to spend quality time with your children. That's a given. Of course, there are always people that work hard and say work comes prior to the kids, but you have chosen at some point to have those children, exceptions, of course, being there. So if they are there, don't you think they deserve it? That the quality time is there. And how about if you have the same passion for things? Will you just support them, pay the money for them to do it? Or would you go one step further and say, hey, I'm going to exercise too. I'm going to do it too. And then there's one last reason. And that last reason is, what if you were to look back on your life? Would you regret it that you haven't done it? And quite honestly, we don't have to look back from when we are 90 or 80 years old. We just can look back at our lives right now. And right now, when people are in their 40s or in the 50s, they already say, yeah, I should have started earlier. It has no use to do it. Well, unless you want to be like a professional ballet dancer or a professional basketball player, then you're right, because they need to be in the prime of their lives. And after 30, it's going to be a lot harder. And after 40, it's done. It's over and done with. I mean, your body just can't keep up with the pressure, the physical pressure anymore. But what about the other things? The things which are not physically challenging, which are challenging when it comes to the brain, because we have to learn new things. Why wouldn't we do those? Because people might consider us weird? I don't know. If I tell people what I do, that I do play drums, that I do play keys, they all love it. And the answer, but I can't do it and it takes me too much time, I don't believe that's the answer. Because if you really want something, then you can find the time for whether it's an online lesson with a person face to face, or an online lesson looking at a book, looking at a video, playing along. I mean, let's face it, when we were young and we didn't have any money, yeah, there has been a time that actually kids didn't have any money because they couldn't depend on their parents to provide for them. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I had to pay for everything myself. So you would listen to, back then it was records and later on it was CDs, and you would figure it out. And of course, we did have sheet music, for instance, and then we would try and see how does this work, and we would study it. And then when we started working, then maybe we would take lessons. So again, what's the real reason why we don't do it? Because we are afraid that we might fail. Are we afraid that it doesn't go quick enough? Are our standards wrong? Could be a lot of reasons why we don't do it. So let's see what Anna says. She says, I totally agree. When we really want something, we find out a way to have time. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. We will find a way to make time to do what we want. And again, I understand that we have to balance what we do with our time. But what if we look at what we want and how we can connect that? So, one of the things I can do, for instance, when it comes to endurance training, I would be able to do it, watching TV, doing other stuff, because it's basically about rhythm. It's about that same movement and doing it all the time. Um, Of course, when it gets more difficult, then you need to pay attention for a while and then you can do it again. I mean, especially when playing music, the goal is that you eventually do it by heart. You don't think about it. For guitar players, you don't look at your guitar anymore. But there are only few people who actually don't look at their guitar. But that's the whole goal behind it, that you do it just on autopilot. But in order to do it on autopilot, we need to do it regularly. If we consider the gym, especially when doing cardio, well, how about doing cardio and meanwhile listening to a podcast or watching a video? Well, sometimes watching something isn't the smartest thing, especially if you don't use your hands. Um, I like to do what I call a cross trainer, an elliptical trainer, depending on where you are, it's called differently. And you can do it forwards, but you can also do it backwards, depending on the machine, of course, and the brand. And well, doing it backwards, sometimes I tend to lose my balance for a sec. That's why it's better not to watch, but just to listen to something, for instance, on your earphones. When it comes to the training itself, I've learned to actually do high intensity training. I don't take breaks. Instead, I switch from upper body to lower body and vice versa. So we are capable of combining stuff, but do we want to do it? When I go out for a walk, I also listen to certain courses, to certain videos. And when I'm outside sitting on the terrace enjoying my latte or my tea or whatever it is, I will be writing. So people see me working with my phone, but actually what I'm doing is I'm writing down my thoughts. So sometimes I do it with a notebook, but usually I put it just straight away in the phone or on my iPad or whatever it is. I Another thing I could be doing is editing videos. But that's the thing. What do we do with our time? How much quality time do we spend? How much awareness is there? I mean, even when we watch TV, do we actually see what's going on? Are we aware of what's going on? Or do we need to go back? And those are the things. If we would do things with more presence, if we would be more aware of how we do things, then things might change. So I got to learn from one of my drumming teachers that in order to learn to play, I start slow and then I build up. And then when I finish, I go back down to the low speed. Why? Because you want to finish without any faults, without any errors. So you want your brain to remember what it sounds like without any mistakes. And you want the um, muscles, well, because we have a muscle memory, to remember that how we had to do it. So, and that's the thing. When we train for something, how do we do it? Are we aware of what the procedures are to do it best? Well, apart from the whole technical thing, let's get back to that part of where we say we don't have time. And I still dare say, I think there's probably a little bit more to it, which has to do with mm, what if I don't succeed straight away? Because we are basically spoiled as adults. You're so used to being able to do things and to do it without thinking about things much. But let's challenge ourselves. Let's try and see if we can learn ourselves new skills, new things to do, and see how it makes us feel. So, yeah, maybe in the beginning we are like, but then when we actually get to do it, that's pretty cool. But it's looking at that mountain and thinking, oh my God, it's so huge, huge. And just maybe when we have been able to already climb that first level, we already feel very good about ourselves. And again, this is also about being a role model, especially when you have uh, nieces and nephews and when you have children, and also maybe for your friends. What do you show them? And when it comes to community, because that's what I also was talking about, you get to learn new people most of the time when you pick up something new. And that's worth a lot too, because what if the ones around you, for some reasons, aren't there anymore? What if you just want some new input and not the same conversation every day? What if you don't want to think about your worries? Well, then it's nice that there's different community. And again, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't even mean you have to leave your house. But it would be nice if you would be able to leave your house. And it would be nice to talk to other people, get other input. So those are reasons why to consider getting back to your dreams. And maybe your dreams weren't specific enough. And maybe you feel like, yeah, but there's no means to an end. I mean, what am I going to do with it? But this is not about this becoming a career. Well, maybe at some point it might be something you do something with, and you never know how things might happen. But what if you would gain extra skills which you could use in your current job and which makes your job a lot more fun? Because when you think quicker and you make the connections quicker, remember neuroplasticity, or you learn new skills which you can use and apply. I mean, take for instance, just last week I reacted to a job which is basically for a few days a year at a festival, and they wanted people who were capable of going in front of the camera, interviewing musicians, and also reporting about the festival going on. Oh, and by the way, you were required to be able to speak English. Well, I speak English every day, as you may have noticed. I like to be behind the camera and also in front of the camera, which I didn't start doing till 2018, by the way. And interviewing people, I actually found it out, well, since this September, because I started doing lives with other people. I started doing collaborations, and I realized it was for me pretty similar to coaching. And I'm curious by nature, so I want to know what's going on. And people feel safe enough to share their story. I mean, they even do it live here on YouTube or on Instagram. So it might come in handy in ways we don't know. But when I combined it all, it just seemed to make sense. I'm a metalhead. I love working with bands. I love doing videos and I love interviewing people. So you never know how it might end up. So, what do we have here? Dreams are what make our lives worthwhile, and each step, even if it maybe looks so small, it's so important to achieve. Yeah, and that's true. Even and every step, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant it might seem at the surface, it's something we did achieve. It's something we did do. It's something we can be proud of. And again, we are role models to others. We leave a legacy, we leave footprints, whether we want it or not. We talk to other people, we interact with other people. So you can expect them to be influenced by what we do or by what we do not do, basically by the choices we make. And what do we want others to know? How do we want to inspire others? Do we want to leave a legacy? I mean, I can say, if I look back on things, that, my mom taught us to play music, all three of us. And now her grandchildren are playing the baby grand that was hers at some point when she was still alive. I've played the baby grand a lot of times also with her because she taught me to play quatre-mains, so that's four hands, when I was still in kindergarten. And for a while, I started playing different instruments. I still do. But I also realized that it comes in pretty handy to be able to play keyboard, especially when it comes to videos and music for the videos. Again, an example of how things can be. So Anna says, I'm a Brazilian, and in 2016, I didn't speak English, and I never had thought that I could be able. Now I'm here watching you talking in English. Well, first of all, that's amazing. And I really want to applaud you, just like I did, and hope other people do it too. And that's so true. That's so true. A lot of people, when you want to do it, you find that time, even if it's like 5 or 10 minutes a day. I've been learning Spanish since November. Well, actually, I did it prior to it. I actually did a couple of courses, but I always had trouble understanding the Spanish because they talk so very quickly. And, when I blank out, I basically don't hear what people are saying anymore. So even when I can read a lot of stuff, it doesn't mean that I can actually understand it because I don't hear it. Literally, I don't hear it. Once I know what they are talking about and I can read it, then I can process it. So it's kind of funny when I go to different countries, other people, they probably can hear what they are saying, but they can't answer back. Well, all that theoretical knowledge that's in my brain, but since I sometimes have this moment of, oh my god, what are they saying, and then being scared to hear it, that's what's actually keeping me from actually hearing them. So when I did Spanish, when I did it purely in written word, there was no problem. But when I went to the course and I heard the Spanish teacher, and she was like going, "Rrr." Okay, say again. "Rrr." I'm sorry, I don't get it. So my mom at some point wanted to do Spanish too, and to a degree, I regret not having done it with her because she asked it multiple times. But there was one reason why I didn't, and it was because I know how important pronunciation is. And I knew that we couldn't do it by the books. Of course, she did have a record player with the books, from a long time ago. And yeah, so several months after she passed away, I actually started doing a Spanish course on the phone. Of course, she didn't have a phone, so she couldn't have done that herself. But still, it would have been nice. So, what convinced me that it was okay to do it on the phone? Well, actually, that was pretty simple. It had to do with hearing the pronunciation, and they have a turtle option. Others might call it a snail option, but you actually see a turtle. And so the ones who also use the app already know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Duolingo. But the turtle option makes it possible to really slowly hear the words. And then it's like, oh, that's what they're saying. So when it goes really quickly and I lose track of it, then there are some other ways to do it. And they actually repeat everything. I repeat it too, and you can actually hear it. So from not knowing how to order a coffee, well, just a little bit, I would now be able to go into a store and say what I need and where I've seen it. So I've learned a lot of words, and I would be able to say, okay, I need to find a taxi when I'm at the airport. At first, I couldn't do that either. And I mean, we're talking about half a year, and I already learned a lot of words. And that's why I'm very proud of what Anna says, because this is about we being capable of doing far more than we think that we are capable of. And that's one of the reasons why I love this country so much, because a lot of foreign people come here. And just recently I talked to someone and she came from Italy. So I was listening and I was like, yeah, I hear your accent. And the week prior to it, I talked to someone who had a Spanish accent. And of course, I recognized that straight away because I've had Spanish clients. So they have certain accent and I recognized that, but I knew this wasn't that one. I didn't recognize that it was Italian, even though I know a lot of Italian people, because she is actually speaking quite well. And so there was something about it, but she hardly made any mistakes. And then, of course, we get back to age again and being able to adapt, which young people are, again, their brains are far more flexible, neuroplasticity, again, so they are far better at adapting than we are at an older age. But again, we can do it too. If I compare how I say certain words compared to a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, there's such a big difference. But it's about doing it consistently. And then we get back to the time. Do we take time to do it consistently? Do we plan certain things? That's basically what it's all about. So it starts with the decision to go do it and figure out when you have the time. Chances are you already have access to whatever it takes. But then, what's keeping you from doing it? Figure out. Maybe your friends want to do it. Maybe your kids want to do it. Spend some quality time. And if you have to interact with strangers, then just remember that also strangers can make for a great time, as in great conversations, because they are much more likely to listen to you than other people do. So, 3 reasons why it is good to actually learn new skills and follow up on your dreams, because we were talking about our dreams. And fear is not one reason of it. But then again, if you were to do it, then you would learn yourself how to conquer fear. And following up on your dreams usually isn't something that is very dangerous. I mean, learning a new language, it might be hard, but it's not dangerous. So think about it. What can you do which teaches you new things and learns you that fear can be overcome? Something to think about. Anyway, before I go, I've got an upcoming challenge which will start this Sunday, and I will be doing a 3-day challenge about speaking up and speaking out, and I want it to be related to a dream and how you can make that dream come true. Just a simple start, nothing fancy. It's about creating balance, and in order to achieve certain things, sometimes that means that you have to communicate and speak out. And that's what we are going to talk about. So, next Sunday, probably a little bit earlier than this, I will post something in the Facebook group. I will go live, and probably around this time, I will go live again on Instagram. I'm not sure. But if you want to join, make sure that you check Instagram, check YouTube, um, and just reach out to me. And well, if you can use that little nudge in the back, the little push to get going, then be there.